everybody. Welcome to the Pound for Pound show. Here to talk about the big fights coming up this weekend. My name is Philip, and joining me as always are Russ and Ben. How you gentlemen doing on this fine evening?
Pretty good.
Awesome, Phil. Awesome.
Good to hear. Good to hear. Well, we got a big pay-per-view coming up this weekend. We got two title fights, some other stuff to get into. So without further ado, let's just get into it. We'll get right into the main event. Super intriguing. Lots of different ways to look at this one. As it was referred to in the 80s, the irresistible force beats the immovable object. Two guys who seem borderline unbeatable. We got Islam Makhachev and Alexander Volkanovski, two dudes who have been on quite a roll. Two dudes I can't remember the last time they lost. They're going to get in there and see who's the best. So lots of intrigue. We'll turn it over. Russ, I'll let you comment first, then we'll pass it over to Ben for some thoughts.
It's a very tough fight to call. It really is because, like you said, they're both been unstoppable for so long. I had to look back and see when Volk last lost. It was like 2013, so 10 years ago, like prior to UFC. That's when his one loss came, and then Makhachev had one early on in his UFC career. So it's tough to see either of them losing. I don't see it being as big as the line says, like minus 350 on Makhachev and plus 300 on Volk. To put him that big of a dog when we've seen him look better every single time. He just keeps improving, and he's dominated far better competition. And I just don't see him getting bullied the way Oliveira got bullied. Like he's too stocky and strong, and he's kind of the bully in most of his fights. So I don't see it going down like that. I'm taking Volk by decision. I think he's going to find a way to win in his home country. I just think he finds ways to win fights, even when when he wasn't at that level, those early max fights and stuff. He just finds different ways. He's got good stand up with the jabs and point fighting, and he's got a great ground game. So I'm going Volk in this one, even though it goes against everything I've said for the last 5 years. Don't go against the Dagestani dudes with the beards, but I got to do it this time.
What if Volk had the beard?
Yeah, if Volk had the beard, I mean, he might as well at this point. He's been that unstoppable.
Yeah. Well, I like a lot of what you said, Russ. I've thought about this fight a lot, and I just can't imagine in my head how this fight goes. I mean, Volk has looked unstoppable, like you said. He's looked perfect in his last 5-6 fights. You know what I mean? He's fought flawless. He's evolved each fight. He's looking better and better. And then you got Islam, who's also looked unstoppable, and he's evolving each fight and finishing top level competition. It's really a matter of just who imposes their will, and being that Islam is the bigger fighter, I'm going to take the safe bet and say Islam bullies him. But I would say Volk's key to victory is keeping the distance, using his jab, keeping it on the feet. I think is Volk's best option and best path to victory. And it's all just a matter of if he can do that. But we know how Islam puts that pressure on every fighter, and he once he gets a hold of you, he takes you down, and that's that. So that's how I see it going. I think Islam's going to take it down, and I think Volk's in over his head. I mean, Volk looks small, kind of in the featherweight division. And Islam looks big in the lightweight division. So I think there's going to be a big size advantage for Islam, and we're going to see it on Saturday night. I'm going to take Islam by, I'll say Volk lasts the fight, though. I will say he goes the distance. I'll say Islam by decision. What do you think, Bill?
Yeah, it's such an interesting fight because you just see, it's like Islam has been able to take everybody down and control them, and Volkanovski has been impossible to get a hold of, and he dictates the pace of the fight. And I know I'm stating the obvious here, but it's just, who is Islam going to be able to catch up to Volk, or is Volk just going to stay away and piece him up with his jab and control the fight? So it's, I've gone back and forth on it. And the thing that I think back to is, it keeps messing with me because at first, Ben, I was with you and I was deferring to the size difference, but Volkanovski is short, but he's not small. He's a real thick guy. And he used to be like a heavyweight when he played rugby. He's a very big, very strong guy. So I always think into that. But then I flip back to the other side and just think every time, we had this exact same conversation before the Oliveira fight, but there's no way Islam can control him. Absolutely he can. And he did.
Right.
So, it really just comes down to, is Islam going to be able to get his hands on him and take him down? So you could really flip a coin. I was like Russ, I was blown away when I saw the line that, like, if I was a gambling man, I would be betting the mortgage on Volk at the odds you're getting. But, I think it's going to take him longer. I think it's going to be tougher. If I had to pick, I think Islam will get to him at some point. Like, I think it's going to take him longer. I don't think he's just going to bowl him over. But I think, just the constant forward pressure, I think he's going to get his hands on Volkanovski and get him down. I'm going to go with Islam by a late sub, maybe like 4th round. I think he's going to get a hold of him later in the fight.
Okay.
I would not be shocked if I was wrong, though. I'm saying that with an
Right.
extremely low amount of confidence.
Right.
There's no way I'm betting a large amount of money either way on this fight. So,
two of the greatest in the world. Yeah.
Yeah. Super intriguing matchup to see how it goes. And then, yeah, like I said, because, like, if Islam gets a hold of him, we'll see, maybe Volk is too strong, being as thick and as big as he used to be. It'll be really interesting to see how it plays out. So,
right.
Interesting to see. So cool. And then we'll move on to our next title fight, which is an interim title fight. And I guess you could, it's interesting because if Volk doesn't win, it seems like it's a no-brainer. He's going to fight whoever wins this fight in his next fight and probably mercifully beat them. So whoever wins this fight is just probably in for a beating at the hands of Volkanovski here in the near future. We got Yair Rodriguez and Josh Emmett. So another kind of an interesting matchup. This one I'll have Ben, you can comment first, and then we'll go to us.
Yes, this is a very interesting matchup. It should be an exciting fight. These guys are known for performances of the night, bonuses in the night, fights of the night, knockouts of the night. I think Yair's key to victory is keeping his distance. We've seen Yair can be real creative and real crafty when he's got his distance and he's got time and he can throw the strikes that he wants to throw. But when he gets pressured, he seems to, kind of give up a little bit. I've seen that in Yair's fights where someone puts the pressure on him. He gasses a little bit. That's a big question mark in Yair's game, in my opinion, is his gas tank. We've seen Yair go to the later rounds and gas a little bit. Emmett, on Emmett's side, he's got KO power. He can put your lights out. He's got some wrestling. He can also strike. He went the decision with Cater. Got the decision against Cater recently. That was a great fight. I don't know. It's a tough fight to call. I think if the deeper the fight goes, it favors Emmett. But if Yair can piece him up and just conserve his gas tank, that's what he's really got to work on. And also, Yair's wrestling is a question mark. We've seen him wrestled in the past against Frankie. He got ragdolled. That was a while ago, but even Max wrestled him a little bit. So, and Yair's a bit helpless on the ground. Unless he's worked on his wrestling, he's going to be in for a long night against Emmett. But it's a tough fight to call. If I had to pick, it's like that's a coin toss in my opinion. It's a coin toss. I'm going to say I'll take Emmett in this one. I'll take Emmett. I think he's got a great mentality, and he's been on a hot streak. He's got 5 wins in a row, and I think he's going to get the win. I don't know how he's going to do it, but I'll just say decision. What do you think? What do you think, Russ?
Yeah, I agree with a lot of what you said. If it goes long, it definitely favors Emmett. He's got the better cardio, and he's shown a lot of heart in his long fights when he's gone the distance. But I think Yair's just superior. He's faster, much faster. I think there's a skill discrepancy. I think Josh Emmett is extremely durable and very good. You can't discredit his win streak, but he reminds me of Pettis. Like when he came in there, like he could destroy dudes with amazing stuff and just look amazing, but then he could lose, to a wrestler that should not, you would not think should be in there with him, but they just can control him. So I'm hoping Emmett keeps this fight standing like he does most of his fights. He likes to strike. So I'm picking Yair to finish him in the second, like by something spectacular. He's so good and creative out there.
Mm-hmm.
I want that, and I predict that.
That's a bold prediction. All right.
I like Yair.
He's awesome. What do you think, Phil?
Yeah, 100% agree. Like Russ literally stole my prediction. Like I think it honestly, like
Right.
Josh Emmett's a very likable dude. He's a grinder. He's a tough dude. He never gives up. But I just think Yair is at a different level, and I think he's going to go out and he's going to just land some big shots, and Emmett's going to realize real quick he's just out of his league. And I think Yair gets him out of the early. Now I do concur that you are correct. If Emmett can weather the storm, he can make it a dirty, ugly fight, get Yair up against the cage, get him on the ground. He can change that narrative real quickly. I just don't think it's going to happen. I think Yair's going to come out there and Emmett's going to be swinging and he's just going to get hit with him. So he's just not ready for, and he's going to get him out of there pretty early. I was going to say first or second round. I think he'll get it done.
Okay.
So go out there and not mess around.
Yeah, I'd like to see him throw some head kicks early. Try to finish it.
Right.
I agree. Good stuff. Well, yeah, good picks, guys. I think that's some good discussion there. So, just a couple other topics we wanted to touch on real quick. I know Ben, you wanted to comment specifically on the re-signing of Kevin Lee to the UFC. So, there was give us some thoughts on that. What's your thoughts on that? Me and Russell comment after.
Now, Kevin Lee, we all know, is a super talented fighter. He had a cold streak back in, what was this, maybe like three years ago or so. And he was cut by the UFC, released. And now he's back. And I think he's still in his prime and he's got tons of potential. So it's a very interesting signing for, I think it's the lightweight division is what or maybe welterweight. I don't know what he's going to be fighting at. But either way, he throws a wrench into everyone's plans and he can beat anyone on any given night. I think very highly of his talent. And what do you think about that, Russ?
Yeah, he's an awesome athlete, no doubt about it. But he did run in that cold streak. I feel like he had like staph infection for like the last 2 years of his UFC career. Like he came in there with staph and then just never got over it.
Yeah,
he was a different fighter after he had it. So hopefully he's completely over that now and can, have an excellent second run.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see for me, and I don't want to sound like overly critical, but just to see if the time off, like how much he's matured, who he's been working with, because I feel like he was a guy that, again, his athleticism, it was like the sky was the limit, and it's like other than that one spectacular knockout he had, it seemed like he was kind of an underachiever. Like we always thought that he would do more than he did. And I don't know if he just wasn't coached properly, if he wasn't committed. Like I said, maybe to Russ's point, maybe he wasn't 100%. But he's a lot of disappointing performances for him because it seemed like every time you'd seem like, oh my God, it's Kevin Lee. And then you'd go out and you'd be like, that wasn't what I thought it was going to be.
Right.
So, it'll be interesting to see if between the time off and everything, if he's healthy and like what he brings to the table. And again, one of the things, he was a very physically imposing guy.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he is going to have to move up to welterweight, I believe. I don't think, because I remember I believe he was going to fight in Khabib's organization. That's where they had that 165, like that catch weight. Because I think he was even struggling into 155 in his UFC career. So I don't see him getting down to 155. So I think he's going to be fighting at welterweight. He's going to be fighting much bigger guys. But that might be good for him because he's not draining himself to get to 155. So It's an intriguing signing for sure. So, you never, it could be the sky is the limit. It could be just like, here we go again.
Right. It's a mystery. It's really a mystery.
So we'll have to see. So cool. And then the last thing I think we wanted to touch on, unless you guys have anything else, is, we got to see the final fight of Fedor's career. Probably didn't go the way that we hoped it would, but it was a fantastic event. Bellator brought out all the legends and really rolled out the red carpet. And I think Russ said it best. We were just texting back and forth in between him and Shogun, like hanging it up. It really is like the end of an era. They were like the two of the last guys from like some people call it the glory days. And by some people, I mean me, of MMA, like just all those legends and all the things they accomplished. So, I'll throw it over to Russ first and then you can go to Ben and then I'll chat about it a little bit. You can talk about the fight, talk about like what Fedor meant to the sport, like what his legacy is going to be, and go from there. So Russ, what do you got for us?
Yeah, absolute legend. Hate to see him go out like that. It's another legend that goes out in a violent way. Like I just wish so much that they could put a legend to let him pick a can, do not do it that way every time. Let him pick a fight, and if they pick an up and coming killer, be like, nah, we're not doing that. We're going to, pick like a 40-year-old dude at your level. not that Bader was like young. Bader's 39, but he's definitely more near his prime than Fedor was. So it was a crushing way to see him go. But I do love the way Coker brought out all the legends, showed the respect. They were all there. That was very cool seeing Hendo in there, Mark Coleman, the Hammer.
Barnett.
Yeah, Barnett in there. So that was very cool. They don't make them like Fedor very often. So, you hate to see him retire. And he could be argued for the best heavyweight of all time. Of course, Stipe's in that argument as well. And Verdum is in that argument as well. He has wins over a ton of great heavyweights. But, you could say Fedor's the best of all time, and wouldn't hear much argument from too many people, at least old school hardcore fans.
Right. Yeah, you said it great, Russ. I mean, Fedor, he's a legend. He's like you said, probably the greatest heavyweight of all time. There's a few others in that conversation, but if you look at his resume and who he beat in Pride during those days, I mean, you could say people nowadays will say, "Oh, Ngannou would have destroyed Fedor back in the day," or what have you, and but those were the best heavyweights in the world at that time. They had most of the best heavyweights in Pride, and Fedor was just crushing them one after the other. Crow Cop, Nogueira, Randleman. The list goes on and on. I mean, he's beaten the who's who of heavyweight legends. But yeah, like you said, that was awesome how they brought the legends out there, and that's what I love about Bellator is that that was so respectful of them to do, and UFC never does that stuff. It's because there's no money involved for them. It's like, what's the point of it? It's like Coker is a very respectful guy. That's what I like about him. And he actually cares about the humans, not just the fighters and the money like the UFC does. He actually cares about the humans. And I like that about Coker. He seems like a good dude. But anyway, yeah, Fedor, just a legend of the sport. And it's the end of an era with Fedor. The last emperor is the last to retire amongst the Pride fighters. And it's a sad day. And I'll never forget the day that me, Joe, and I think Shaw was there, and our other buddy Tim, we went to see Fedor versus Hendo it was in Chicago, and Hendo knocked out Fedor. That was so shocking but awesome at the same time because Hendo's so awesome too. So, but yeah, I'll never forget that. But yeah, it's such a legend, and it's sad to see him go that way. What do you think, Phil?
Yeah, I mean, what can you say? I mean, you guys said a lot of great things, obviously, certainly in the conversation for the greatest heavyweight of all time. And I think if he probably wouldn't have overstayed his welcome, and if you just look at that 10-year run where he was undefeated, if he retires 5 years ago, he's probably in the conversation of just the greatest of all time, period.
Right.
He piled on a lot of losses towards the end of his career, and I think a lot of people remember a lot of that. But it's if you weren't there, it's hard to think of number one, just how dominant he was. And I saw it somewhere when they had Fedor versus Crow Cop in these epic fights. The UFC was putting out Tim Sylvia versus Gan McGee in their heavyweight title fights. It's it wasn't even a comparison between the two leagues. So to, kind of the history is written by the winners, and to kind of skew the way that people view that heavyweight division is crazy. And if you go back, and I just remember those being some of the coolest times, getting together, those Pride events were they felt like something special. Every event was a huge event, and it just felt like such a big deal when you watched a Pride event. They were so much fun, and Fedor was just in a class all of his own, and similar to some of the guys we've talked about recently, you're always oh, this is going to be the guy to beat him. And he goes out there and he just takes care of business. And he was a very unique fighter. He was fun to watch, the way that he threw his punches and the things he could do. If you haven't seen a lot of his fights, go back and watch them. They were certainly something to behold, and he was a special talent, and it is a bummer. He's but at the same time, it's not a bummer because, to your point, he shouldn't have been out there fighting that fight, and he probably shouldn't have fought his last five. As much as we love to see him, seeing it, and we all kind of knew how it was going to go, and none of us wanted to see it, but you can't put him out there, a guy who's on his retirement tour on the closer to 50 than he is to 40, and have him fight the reigning heavyweight champion. You couldn't have expected it to go any different. You hoped it did, but you secretly knew better. You knew there was only one result, and that's exactly what happened. And that was a bummer to see. But again, I thought it was the whole event up to that, bringing back all the legends and everything was such a cool event. You love to see stuff like that. And it'll be interesting to see how they do that going forward, because there's no more of those guys to really put out there, like I said, now that Fedor is retired, like, what's going to be the occasion that brings those legends to the events, unless they just have specific like shows where they bring out some legends to celebrate, and maybe for like the Hall of Fame week or International Fight Week or something like that. Like, when's the next time we're going to see that many Hall of Famers in the cage at the same time?
Yeah.
Probably never.
Right.
Yeah. So
I would say never.
Yeah. Hopefully they find a way to do some cool stuff like that, and they can, even if they just drag those dudes out for public appearances, they just get Fedor to make an appearance in one of his cool sweaters once every couple of years.
Right.
Show up, wave to the fans, sign some autographs, and go home. So
Yeah.
I loved how he was talking to Chuck and he patted his belly and laughed about it. That was awesome.
That was tremendous. Two dudes who had bellies their entire career, so I'm sure they had a good laugh about that. So
right.
Super funny. So I guess last thing, Russ, we'll toss it over to you to see if you've got any best bets for this to make the people any money, and then we'll close up shop. What do you got for us?
Got a few bets written down. Just recap, last time out was 1-2. We lost on Jamal Hill by KO TKO. I thought he could get the finish, and Glover's just too freaking tough, even though he got, owned for 5 rounds, but he just is too freaking tough. And then lost on Figgy Moreno over. Figgy's eye closed, and that was that. What can you do? Perfect punch landed on his eye and closed it up. And then one on Murphy Andrade over. Murphy, as projected, is tough as hell. Like, she just will not be stopped.
And it was no fault of Andrade, because she beat the bloody hell out of that girl.
Yeah, I mean,
like you said, she's like, you should beat her and beat her and beat her.
Yeah, good call. Good call.
Yeah, 1-2. So for this one, we're taking the big dog Volk plus 300, trying to make some money. He's arguably the pound for pound fighter right now, top pound for pound, and he's plus 300. That's insane. I don't care if he's going against a bigger dude. He's so good.
Plus 300, I'd take him against John Jones. Like, get out of here.
Then I'm taking Yair minus 165. I think that line is that's pretty fair, but Yair, I think, should win that fight. He's just better. And then I'm taking Alonzo Menefield is plus 155. He's a dog against Jimmy Crute, who's been stopped his last 2 times out. So I think that's a good line. Menefield's on a win streak. Crute has been stopped twice in a row by Hill, and then by, I can't remember who got him before that, but he's been TKO'd a couple times in a row now. So 2 dogs and a favorite.
Okay. Nice.
I like it. That was a deep cut on that last one. I like that.
I mean, if you go past those 2 fights on the main card, it's a deep cut.
Right.
It's true. That is true. So
yeah,
good stuff, man. Anything else you boys want to cover before we get on out of here?
If you want to make some more money on the Super Bowl, we're going Eagles, baby.
Just Ben, you
the
can
birds.
Ben, you can edit that out. So
if you want to make some real money, bet the birds.
Not get that pick. No, you're going to want to take the Chiefs, and you're going to want to, however many passing yards you want to add on, do the same game parlay, get Mahomes to throw right about 300. You'll get a pretty good payout when they win that game. So
we'll see.
I did want to add one more thing. What do you guys think about the announcement of the new Ultimate Fighter season? Conor versus Chandler.
I'm beyond excited for that. The most exciting thing to me that UFC could have announced. Conor's coming back. We're going to have him for a full season of entertainment on ESPN doing the Ultimate Fighter, and then an awesome fight to finish it off. I mean, if he can pass the USADA test and live like a month or like 6 months or whatever in Vegas, then, we get to the fight, I'll be very happy. But
that's a lot of asks.
That's asking a lot.
Feel like when you have that much money, you'll pass the test whether you pass it or not. So
right.
That's what I'm banking
They'll
on.
get him in there. They'll get him in there one way or the other. So you guys know my feelings on it. I don't care. I won't watch the Ultimate Fighter. I'll only be interested if Chandler bashes his face in. That's all I care about.
Well, you should be happy about that fight then, because they put him against one of the biggest crushers in the whole organization.
That's true, but I think it's one of those fights. I think that Chandler, his chin has been pretty questionable, and I think it's a very winnable fight for Conor. I want to have I would put him in there against Islam. That's the fight I want to see.
Right.
I just want to see absolute destruction with no chance of it going the other way. Like, that is not what I want to see.
Hell no, they won't do that. You kidding me?
for as much as I don't like that dude, I try to be unbiased, and he certainly has stopping power. And Chandler likes to eat punches for some reason, and Connor is happy to make people eat punches. So
and Connor's been working on his durability, getting hit by cars. He's so tough at this point.
Right.
You're not gonna stop him now.
He might be so juiced up that a car can't stop him. That might be
exactly.
That might
probably
be
destroyed the car.
It is very possible. He's looking pretty juicy these days.
That's
Him and
great.
MJF looking pretty juicy.
Yes, for
That's
sure.
Great.
Awesome. Anything else you guys want to get into?
No, that's it, Phil. That's it,
Awesome.
man.
Well, thanks for bringing the news and the predictions to the people. We appreciate you guys checking us out as always. Enjoy watching the fights, and we will be back soon to review the next one. So, guys, have a good one. We'll see you soon.